Okay. So, I've been wasting time, delaying, I guess, uh, changing my oil. And I realized that what I need is fewer steps, less, um, I guess I would call it prep time, but less prep. More doing, more uh, directly attacking the work, because the work is obviously the most important thing. But we get into this mode of, or at least I do, mode of stalling, where you're like, well, this is going to be annoying, and it's going to be a bother, and I have to do all this like prep work to get ready for it. And by the time I do all that, it's just going to take a long time. It's like you build up the task in your head. So I was like prepping this and planning it, and trying to set up where I think that's still centered. Trying to figure out where all this stuff needs to go. Oh, shoot. So that I can have the easiest oil change experience possible. And I realized that I was making, without knowing it really, I was making concretions. I was taking a task that is a relatively simple task, and expanding it out into this mess, this mass of activities that needs to take place, when it's really not that bad. I was like building up the task in my head. There we go. And knowing that I was doing this, I was like, okay, well, how can I plan this out to reduce the prep work, to make it so that, and this is about productivity from the beginning, because this is what I'm doing in. I recently redid some reporting work. I have some tools that help the reporting process move along faster. And those tools, I was thinking about it, and they don't really do much, because the reporting process is a rather simple process. You read some forms, you input some data, and then based on that data, you open up the form, you open up one of the forms, and you input whatever flavor of data or whatever type of data is required for that form. And then based on whatever your inputs are, you might not open the next file. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of thought, but it's a lot of branching trees in that workflow process. And I just recently finished up improving the reporting software, I guess. It's like a reporting helper thing. I wrote it in eLisp, and all that Emacs does in this case is accept input from me, apply logic to the input to make sure the input is good, that it makes sense, that I didn't screw it up, decide what file needs to be opened next, and then prep my clipboard with the data that needs to be pasted into it. So my workflow is essentially input data. Did you get this? Yes. Enter the data. Okay. Did you get this? No. Okay. Did you get this? Yes. Enter this data. And then when I'm done, it reads what files need to be opened, opens the first file, preps the clipboard, says, here, do this, and then I do it. And then I save and close the file, and it says, are you ready for the next file? And I hit Y to say yes, and then it moves to the next file. And it's something that seems so obvious. It's one of those things that it's like, why would I even program that? Why would I even take the time to develop something that would do that when it's just so simple? It's unbelievably simple logic. And then you start to realize that it's not about the tool, it's about the process. The process is what is annoying. It's the opening of the files, it's the little thoughts, it's the making the little decisions that say, should I open this file next? Do I need that? Come on, how many turns? You know, these are all aspects of this reporting process that need to take place. So when I think about my oil change, I think about every nook and cranny, every little bit of the task that needs to happen in order for me to successfully change my oil. And forget it, I'm just going for it. So the question is, you know, the answer is not, well, it's easy, so just do it. The answer is to focus on what the actual work is. So what is the actual work? The actual work is undoing this bolt, or I guess putting this underneath it, undoing this bolt, letting it drain, putting the bolt back in, undoing the filter, letting it drain, putting the next filter in, and then pouring oil into the, opening the top and then pouring new oil in. And that is it. Everything I do outside of that, from getting the car elevated to crawling under the car to prepping the tools to be the tools that I'm going to need, to setting up a light and then the light's burned out, so I find a different light, and then that light doesn't work very well, so I use my phone, and then I'm using my phone and I'm like, why don't I just record a freaking video about this? Because I'm thinking about all this stuff, and it's like I'm adding, this is all concretion. Like, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, what if I do this beforehand, and why don't I prep that, and what if this happens, and what if that happens? And I'm just like, the job is so simple. You know, if I take this to an oil change place, they run it up, it's over a raised floor. Someone reaches up, gets oil all over their hands, unscrews it, drains the oil, plugs it up with a new filter, and moves on. Like, you drive out, that's it. But it's the prep. It's being ready for it. It's having things set up around it. It's making the little decisions before, during, and after that, I guess, kind of wear me out. So I need to start thinking about these oil changes in a different way. Boil them down. And this is, if you haven't guessed already, this is about programming. This is about process development. This is about productivity. You need to pare your processes down to the most important parts, the most rudimentary portions of it, the most important portions of it, because those are the only portions that matter, that actually matter. And then say, how do I eliminate everything that's not that? Or how do I pre-package everything that's not that? Something as simple as gathering the tools could be handled with just putting all your tools in a tray, one oil change tray. That's it. And when you're ready for an oil change, you walk over, you grab the tray, and you just bring it over here, and you're done. Deciding, today was really cold, so I had to figure out, it's like, is it going to warm up, or do I do this with the garage closed? So I figured out how to do this with the garage closed. Back of the car, I have to put the ramps in just the right spot, and I have to drive up on them in just the right way so that I can close the garage door. And then I can work inside the garage instead of in the 20-degree weather. But what if I just pre-marked all this? What if I spray painted some outlines of where these ramps need to go in order for me to do this stuff? And then I could drive out, back out the car, pick up the ramps from wherever, put them right in their spots, in their templates, and then drive up. And now I'm ready. And speaking of grabbing tools, I forgot my filter. Hang on. So, even something as simple as this oil filter, this oil filter has a hex on the end of it, or whatever you call this, a socket on the end of it, so that it's easy to pull out. Because if you haven't noticed, this is a mess, especially if the car is on. So again, I have to plan ahead and make sure that the car hasn't been on for a while. Otherwise, all this heat shielding is just, it'll burn the heck out of you. And there's basically no way to get up in there if it's really hot. So if I change the thing that I'm using, Sorry about that. So if I change the tools that I'm using, or the products that I'm using, I guess, I can also make it so that I don't have to worry about this as much. Removing the oil filter is easier in this process because I chose a different oil filter. And that brings us to the point where, you know, you start making serious improvements to how well a process goes, or how fast a process goes, I should say. That's a weird bottle. And when you're at that point, it's like, you know, you start getting it to the point where things are going really fast. You don't have those little decisions to be made in the middle of the process. Am I going to do it this way? Did I do it that way? Is the car hot right now? You know, and it can even be a matter of setting up a scenario. I mean, like, okay, so it has to be done on a Saturday, because a Saturday morning's a good morning to do it. What time does it have to be done? What time do the kids get up? You know, car will have been off for a while. Are my ramps ready? You know, even prepping the ramps. This is all stuff you can do that just makes your process easier. And we're attacking the process because, you know, it's the banality of it all that just bothers me. I don't like doing it. It's what I regret, I guess. I wouldn't say regret. It's what I loathe, what bothers me. It's the thing that makes me not want to do it. And it's stuff that needs to be done. It's like those reports. I bloody hate reports. It's an annoying process. But it's for our ISO certification. It needs to be done. And it is actually important. But, you know, I don't like the busy work. So I guess that might be part of it. I've never liked busy work. So the answer is to make busy work as minimized as possible, or as little as possible. To turn the busy work into computer work. Let the computer do it. So think about your processes and start with the things that you don't like to do. The things that you're like, ugh, I have to do that again. Like, this is going to happen again. I'm not going to like it. It's not going to be fun. You know, it's like the lead up to the experience is never as bad. The lead up to the experience, like the loathing, the dreading of it going to happen. Dread's a strong word, but still. That's much worse than actually just doing it. Usually. It's like, why? Why is this a thing? So think about, like I was saying, think about your processes. Think about what you're doing. Think about how you can make things easier. Think about what the computer can do for you, even if it is what you consider, you know, trivial work. You know, literally looking at numbers and navigating to a file and opening that file, or looking at the numbers and not opening one of the files. That's all this report thing did for me. It's just like a little helper tool thing. It opens the files for me. It preps my clipboard for me. That's it. It really doesn't do that much. But after I was done with it, I burned through like 8 reports in like 2 hours or something. And that's worth something. So, you know, it's like the trivial stuff always adds up. It's always the little things. The little things always add up. So think about that, and think about your processes, and think about how you can make things better. Think about how you can improve your lot by having to do less stuff, less busy work. And, you know, finishing up the stuff that you hate doing. All right.